This is our introduction to Color Your Community Green. This is a really exciting project that's been, we're kind of in early stages of development with a lot of different partners and a lot of different communities, really exciting work that's already being done. And we are thrilled to share this with you tonight. Next slide, please, Al. Okay, so our agenda, we are here doing welcome and introductions. I'm also going to invite you to use the chat function to also just share your name, if you're associated with any organizations that might be relevant, and then also the municipality or neighborhood that you live in, right? Just so we have a good sense of who's here. Again, in the chat, if you don't know how to use the chat, it's a little button down on the bottom. Name, organization, if appropriate, and what municipality you live in. And that'll give us a sense of who's in the virtual room tonight. So we're gonna quickly move into just an overview of what this whole Color Your Community Green thing is, followed by a case study of the work that's been going on in Penfield. Very excited to have you hear from Penfield tonight. We also have, in the very, very early stages of development, a Color Your School Green initiative, kind of a partner initiative with Color Your Community Green. So Anna Serla-Soletti will be giving us a little preview of that. We'll talk about how to get involved. As I mentioned, we will have time for questions and answers, and then we will wrap up and get everyone out of here by 8 o'clock. All right, great. I see you guys sharing your name, organization, and municipality in the chat. Appreciate that very much. So you got a pretty good crowd in the room. So let's move on. These are the people you're going to be hearing from tonight. Myself, I'm the Executive Director of the Rochester People's Climate Coalition. Katie Rigg and Al Hibner from Penfield, who've been working on Color Penfield Green. And then Anna, as I mentioned, has been working on Color Your School Green. So these are the voices you'll be hearing from. And what is this general concept? So the overarching idea is we want to make it easier for people to get involved in meaningful climate action. I know that when I first started this work, I spent a considerable amount of time initially just kind of floundering around and trying to figure out what I could do to be effective and helpful. And the goal is to streamline that process so that people who are joining new to our local climate movement can get down to the good stuff a lot faster. So in terms of the who, Color Your Community Green teams are groups of concerned citizens, individuals, organized by municipality or neighborhood with support from RPCC and other local climate organizations. So we're creating a network here of people who can work together and partner to move solutions forward. Next one. Again, that network, I got a little ahead of myself there, of citizen action groups who collaboratively develop resources and identify best practices to advance their shared mission. We will get into exactly what that mission is in a little bit. The why is, essential here, critical, that some very important and strategic climate solutions must be implemented at the municipal level. And the reason for that is that New York is a home rule state, so municipalities have a lot of control over what they do. And so some specific examples here would be community choice aggregation. Local communities have to pass the enabling law for that to be able to move forward. Similarly, there's an energy storage law that has to be implemented at the municipal level. The stretch energy codes have to be implemented at the municipal level. So all of these are really critical climate solutions that the only way they can move forward is when citizens get involved and push their local leaders forward. But of course, we don't want it to be too hard. So how is this going to work? The teams will use the Color Your Community Green toolkit, go into what that is, to identify locally relevant climate solutions and develop strategies to move those solutions forward. And I'll just say right here that this is not a top-down effort. This is very much intended to be community-led, community-driven. RPCC is here, again, to support, along with other local organizations that can provide resources and training and that sort of thing. But it's really about the communities figuring out what solutions make the most sense for them and developing the strategy to move that forward. Next slide, please, Al. Okay, so the group of volunteers who've been working on this so far have collaboratively developed a mission statement, and values. And the idea being here that if this Color Your Community Green network would need to have some sort of cohesive brand, let's say, to even have it be recognizable in the community. So groups that are going to officially label themselves Color Penfield Green, Color Henrietta Green, Color whatever green, would need to commit to this mission and these values. Now, that doesn't mean any community who wants to do things a different way, have their own mission, their own value statements, would still be welcome to use the toolkit. We're definitely not trying to be exclusive about this at all, or you know, proprietary. But this is the mission statement we put out there at this point, that these groups are looking to create and train a network of citizens at the municipal or neighborhood level who are empowered to incorporate individual efforts to systems level environmental solutions with a focus on climate. And these values, respectful, inclusive, nonpartisan, solutions-focused, collaborative, scientifically informed, and committed to social, racial, economic, environmental, and intergenerational justice. Those of you who are familiar with RPCC might think, these values look awfully familiar, and that's because they are indeed RPCC's values. So again, community-based teams are free to use this or not use this, but the expectation is that if you're calling yourself Color such and such Community Green, that you would ascribe to this mission and these values. Go ahead. So in terms of what these teams actually do, the primary activities goals are to educate and mobilize both neighbors and elected officials, identify and implement high impact campaigns. And I'm going to just emphasize there the high impact. Again, as I said, you know, when I first started in this work, I really didn't even know what high impact meant. I didn't know what locally relevant solutions are. And, you know, we want to make sure people can kind of cut to the chase on what is actually going to make a meaningful impact on local greenhouse gas emissions and direct attention there. Advocate for environmental justice and equitable systems level solutions, collaborate with climate focused organizations and plug into existing momentum, develop and empower local climate leaders, and continuously learn and develop skills related to advocacy, organizing, and issues. And those last two, again, I'll just touch on a little bit, that this is not a top-down thing. This is community-led. So that development of leaders, that actual transformation and skill building is what we're shooting for. So it's not just, you know, we want people to sign a petition or, you know, make a phone call once. We're looking for that deeper and more rich development as climate leaders. And the resources that are currently available to support that, the primary thing we have is this toolkit, but I'm going to emphasize strongly that it is a draft. This is a living document or group of documents. And we look forward to tweaking it and improving it as all of these communities work forward and move forward and learn and kind of refine our approach. So again, it is a draft made up of a number of different documents. You can find it right on our website. And it's designed to be pretty user-friendly and straightforward. So if you check out that getting started document, you'll see it says like, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Again, free for communities to use or not use as they see fit, and you know, take the parts that they find helpful. It's not prescriptive, but it is designed to just streamline the process of figuring out how to take effective action. The actions menu, again, focuses on what are those locally relevant climate solutions. It will continue to, you know, we'll continue to add more, and as communities have success with specific solutions, those will be added, and we can go into, you know, a little more detail about what the steps are to move any single climate solution forward. Municipality assessment worksheet is kind of just to guide teams through thinking about who are the significant players in their community, who should they be connecting with, what should they be thinking about that is, you know, unique to their own municipality or neighborhood. And if you check that out, you'll see there's a lot of material there. I would suggest starting with getting started because we don't want it to feel at all overwhelming. You know, you kind of use what pieces are helpful and take it at your own pace. Also tech support. The wonderful Al Hibner, I got to give him a lot of credit for this, for being willing to help teams get set up with the communications tools they may need and other forms of tech support that they may need. That network of other Color Your Community Green teams has been doing fantastic work so far. Just having, the leaders of these teams come together, share best practices, and think through some of the challenges together, again, to make everyone's job easier. And then we are here, other climate-focused organizations in our region are here, whether it's to provide training or, specific support with, for example, Rocktricity can tell you exactly how to move community choice aggregation forward in your town. So our role is largely to connect you with the right partners to help move things forward quickly. And the communities where this is, kind of being piloted at this point, Penfield, Fairport, Pittsford, Irondequoit, Henrietta, and Spencerport, Ogden. These communities are in various stages of development. I should also mention Color Brighton Green. I'm sure many of you have heard of Color Brighton Green. They've been at this for a long time. They were, pre-toolkit by a long ways. So a lot of this is modeled after what they've already been doing for many years. But Penfield's also been at it for a little longer than some of the other communities. So learning from what's worked for them has been a primary focus. And just the goal of this is eventually to expand this throughout the 9-county region. And that connects with some other work that we're doing, where we will be needing to put pressure on our community leaders over the long term to advance specific climate solutions. And I think Al's going to take it over now, right, Al?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Abby. And I wanted to start off by saying that what Katie and I are going to present tonight during this portion of the session is a possible roadmap. It's always good to have an example of what Color Your Community Green could be like. So I think that's the purpose of us going over this. The process that we went through in Penfield also became somewhat of a model, as Abby just alluded to. We were in the process of the toolkit development, providing ammunition and fodder for creating the toolkit. So we hope that you find this case study valuable, informative. It's always good to have an example. So with that being said, let's get started here. I want to talk about, initially talk about 4 things, what motivated me to start Penfield CCA. And by the way, Penfield CCA was the initiative in Penfield, community choice aggregation, that led to the formation of Color Penfield Green. So I'd like to connect those dots for you, show you how that happened. How did we build our team? What did we do as a group during the 18 months that we were together to get our local law passed? And how did this formation of this group lead to the formation of Color Penfield Green? I think it's a good story, a compelling story, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. At the end of 2016, after the election, I felt a deep need to really start working on climate solutions. And I Googled the words Rochester and climate, and I found RPCC, and I rapidly found out you can't join RPCC. You really need to be a part of one of their member organizations. So I jumped right into working with Citizens Climate Lobby. And it's that group, which is a member organization of RPCC, that gave me a tremendous set of skills for learning how to lobby. Lobbying is very important because you are lobbying your municipal governments when you're attempting to get an initiative passed like community choice aggregation. So I built some lobbying skills. See Tim McGowan here, who actually formed one of the original founders of Citizens Climate Lobby. He introduced me to Sue Staropoli, who's on our session tonight. And I immediately started working with her to help deliver presentations and support the technical side. But it was at a course, and you can see me presenting the PowerPoint at this course in October of 2018. That's where the idea got hatched by me to actually stand up Penfield Community Choice Aggregation Residence Committee. Sue had mentioned that there was another person interested. I was aware of an additional person interested. And right away, I had my first follower and my second follower. I had a group. I was the lone nut with the weird idea that maybe we could lobby our town of Penfield to actually get an enabling law passed. That was my idea, but we needed people to help with that. So that's the night, that picture that was taken, that's the night that I actually formed that committee. Now, the very first meeting that we held on October 23rd of 2018, there's me up at the dining room table. On my right is my first follower, Chris. Below Sue here, Hugh Smith is my second follower, John. And the best thing we ever did was to launch our committee by asking Sue Hugh Smith to educate us about community choice aggregation. Right away, all three of us started off as equals. I wasn't just the leader. I was just setting the stage for all of us to learn and grow and develop together as a team. We were off to a really good start. Now, the way that the team grew is organic. People started hearing about our cause, what we were doing. People were talking about it. We were getting referrals. People just started joining us because our cause resonated with them. We grew organically. We never really had to recruit members. That people just came and joined us. So again, as the leader, we were all equal. I just set the stage, got out of the way for everybody's contributions. All incredible valuable contributions, and the work just seemed to flow smoothly. Now, what did we do in the 18 months from inception to when the law was finally, 18 months, okay? We did a lot. And I think it's illustrative for you to see the kinds of things that we went through to make this initiative happen in Penfield. First of all, we eagerly adopted cutting edge technology. That was me. That's just my background. I insisted that we have social team working software like Slack, Zoom, that we have a website, that we have Facebook page. I insisted we have all of that to make our work together efficient, to remove email chain pain, and just to get things done faster and more effectively. So that was important. And Abby referenced the technology toolkit. I've written that toolkit. I use all those tools, and I'm available to help any community in looking at these tools and what might fit in your CPG or CYCG organization. The other thing we did is we met when we needed to. We met when we had a deliverable, when we had a lobby meeting to prepare for, when there was a town board that we needed to talk to, a public hearing. We met when there was an important deliverable. Never wasted time, never. It ended up being about monthly, but we only met when we had a real reason to do that. We educated our community. We went out and presented to groups. I even presented to the Republican Town Committee, okay? And you know, on, and the Democratic Town Committee too, as well. We stood up a petition. We tabled at events. We developed a web page. We got the word out about what we were trying to do. I think most importantly, we used our lobby skills developed from CCL, Citizens Climate Lobby, to lobby our town board members. Lobby is persuasion. We needed to persuade our town board members that there was a group of people that wanted community choice aggregation, that wanted 100% clean, renewable, carbon-free electricity as the default option for all 36,000 residents in Penfield. Talk about meaningful, impactful work. I don't see how it gets any better than that. We are community members affecting our community in a very positive way for the climate to reverse global warming. We attended meetings constantly. Every meeting that CCA was on the agenda, we were there. We were even there at some meetings where it wasn't, which made the board members a little nervous because we might be the only people in the audience. Okay, what are they there for? Why are they there? And so we were always in their face, always, always. They never forgot us in 18 months. Constant presence. Finally, on May 20th, 2020, on Zoom, a virtual board meeting, they unanimously passed the local law number 2 in Penfield, the CC enabling legislation. Now, that was a big moment for us, okay? If you think about it, you know, we had a virtual Zoom celebration. We toasted on Zoom, and we looked around to see what was next for us to do, okay? We were sort of like the dog that chases the car and catches the darn car. Now, what do we do with the car? Okay, we've caught the car. That didn't take very long because really the next step is that we needed to select an administrator, help the process of the board to select an administrator. We're insisting on their choice of an administrator that will select 100% clean renewable electricity as our default CCA program option. So we do have work left to do, but that whole blue box there, that's not for us to do. That's administrative, legal, formal, contractual, etc. So where do we go from here? 18-month single initiative, very, very effective. What do we do now? Well, the last part of implementing CCA is reaching out to the public. That we can do. We can educate the public. And it was Katie Rigg, and she'll talk in a minute, who made the connection, the transference between, okay, CCA, the committee, it's kind of ending its work, but we have a broader mission. She is the one who made the connection, the leap to color your community green. And I became her first follower and helped her to stand up the website. And with that, CCA became the first initiative that we have put into as a building block or cornerstone for our website. And with that, I'll pass on to Katie Rigg to explain how we have evolved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Al. And I'll talk for a couple minutes about how we've changed over the last year or so. We didn't call it Color Penfield Green until recently, but truly Al created Color Penfield Green 2 years ago. And he stayed laser focused on CCA until it was time to evolve to become more public facing. We also took on a second campaign, electric school buses. The sample actions menu in the toolkit has like 24 possible campaigns, but we strongly recommend choosing 1 or 2 that your team has a real passion for, and then do those well. There are people in this network that can help you to learn the background and skills necessary to build a successful campaign. So you've already heard Al talk about the role of Pachamama Drawdown and CCL in his standing up of CCA. But for EV school buses, I knew absolutely nothing about electric school buses when we started back in December. But it spoke to my heart because I have 2 little ones who are about to enter the public school systems. And so Mothers Out Front invited us into their local efforts and with the utility companies. And we attended workshops with them, and they helped us draft letters to the superintendent. And along the way, we found the Greater Rochester Clean Cities. They've offered to coach us, coach the school district in all the steps it'll take to go electric. So the expertise is out there. Next slide, please, Al. Our team is actually pretty big at this point. I consider anyone who would be willing to take some kind of action on our behalf to be part of the team. And that could be attending strategy meetings, or attending or speaking at board meetings, writing emails to the school board, contributing content to the website or our newsletters. And so we have a pretty big team. Certainly Al's residence committee, CCA residence committee, is the core of that. But we have strong relationships with the environmental clubs at the schools. And then RPCC has brought the climate groups in the area together so we can easily reach out to Penfield residents who volunteer with member organizations. We've also managed to recruit a half dozen or so new members through our website and our newsletter. The first thing we did once we decided we needed to be more public was to create this website through Wix, and it's kind of a catch-all for local sustainability. We wanted to meet people where they were at and provide something interesting for everybody. So we want to be able to educate, show how they can engage with the climate movement in the area, offer opportunities to take action, And because it's so limited otherwise, this is how we recruit new members when we have to be socially distant. We've recently produced a newsletter and blog. We have 5 main contributors and we meet monthly to discuss topics. We always include an update on the CCA campaign, and we'll eventually use this platform to make the case for electric school buses later this winter. We have wide-ranging special interest articles, how the COVID shutdown showed us a possible future with less air pollution, written by a 7th grader. What local houses of worship are doing to go green, celebrating local farms that have committed to regenerative agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. We highlight events that are being hosted by local climate groups. And finally, it occurred to me a couple of months ago that we're now an organization, and that gives us power that we didn't have as individuals. As such, we signed on in support of actions like the Green Alliance's ramping down of gas infrastructure, and the statement by the Greater Rochester Black Agenda Group, racism is a public health crisis. So we can talk about why we support those positions and provide opportunities for residents to learn more about those issues. And we feel wholly supported out here in Penfield by other Color Your Community Green teams, by RPCC, and by local climate organizations. It's really thrilling to be a part of this climate action movement that's being built throughout the region. Here in Penfield, Color Penfield Green connects many of the stakeholders interested in sustainability: our town board and the EEAC, individual residents, town farms and businesses, Facebook groups, houses of worship, and the environmental clubs at our schools. And the youth presence always reminds adults in the room what's at stake. So I strongly encourage folks who are thinking about starting a team to reach out to your school's environmental clubs early on. With any luck, you'll meet someone like our own Anna Sorosoletti, who is the president of the Environmental Club and the Rochester field organizer for the New York Youth Climate Leaders, and you'll hear from her next. But thank you for your time, and we wish you luck in forming a team. We would love to partner with you.
Anna,
Thank you,
you want to
Katie.
take it away? There you are. Good. All right, perfect.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, Color Penfield Green is a great group, and it's been a pleasure to work with them and collaborate with the Environmental Club through that group. As mentioned before, I'm a summer intern with RPCC, and my project is creating sort of a parallel to the Color Your Community Green toolkit, Color Your School Green. So the goal of this project is to create a toolkit that will guide environmental clubs in becoming more impactful in their school, in their community as well. So the toolkit will include an actions menu similar to the Color Your Community Green toolkit, among other things, to guide the school group to engage in more impactful actions. And so one piece of that is connecting that school group to a Color Your Community Green group in their community. Like our club has in Penfield in the past, we've worked on community choice segregation with the Penfield CCA group, and then eventually the Color Penfield Green group. And so we found that that is very effective, and as Katie said, it's useful to have youth in the room, especially when you're lobbying, because it reminds them of whose futures are at stake. And so, yeah, we will, if you're interested in learning more, if you feel free to just reach out to me. You can message me through the chat, and I can connect with you through email or through Slack. And yeah, we're still in the developing stages of it, and it's still being written, but hopefully it will be very useful to the Color Your Community Green groups and to the school environmental clubs. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Anna, and Al and Katie. Let's see, can you guys hear me? Yes, good. All right, cool. And I just want to, just put out there that don't be intimidated by what Penfield is doing. They have been at it for a little while, so they've had some time to gain some momentum. And you know, it is very impressive what they've done in Penfield, but don't feel, you know, and so they've set the bar quite high, but you have to start somewhere, right? And having them as a resource, even just to, you know, again, share best practices, is that network we're trying to set up to support new communities who are getting into this work. So in terms of how to get involved, I'm about to share in the chat our Color Your Community Green interest form. So that's a pretty straightforward way just to, you know, tell us who you are, tell us what community you live in. If there is a group existing already, you know, someone who's kind of getting this started in your community, we will connect you with that person. If not, we would invite you to perhaps start attending the Color Your Community Green team leaders meeting. You can get a better sense of it. We are also in the process of developing a launch platform so that for communities who are looking to get this started but kind of need that initial, you know, push, that we can come in, you know, either with or without a facilitator and support that first meeting or that first couple of meetings to help you get your feet under you. So also exploring the toolkit, you can just take a look again, see what pieces seem helpful for you. It is pretty straightforward, so should give you a sense of at least where to start. And chatting up your neighbors, that's really essential. You know, climate change has historically been a fairly politically polarized issue, and so sometimes people are a little hesitant to just strike up a conversation about climate change. But the research shows that this is more and more all of the time an issue that people really are concerned about and looking for action opportunities. So I suspect, you know, if you just bring it up in casual conversation with some people you know, that you might get a good response. And if not, I would say, you know, don't let that discourage you too much. It might take a while to find that group of people who you really click with and who, you know, you just have that chemistry where you want to work together. And that's okay. That's totally okay. This, you know, we want to set expectations appropriately that this is not going to happen overnight. You cannot expect to, like, you know, talk to the guy next door tomorrow and the next day have accomplished what Penfield has accomplished. That would be totally unrealistic. So setting appropriate expectations for yourself that there will be this learning curve. It will take some time to just get your bearings, and just know that the Color Your Community Green network that exists, everyone's kind of gone through this already and understands that process. So you would have support in that. And I think, if I'm right, Al, is the next slide say, any questions? So again, we'd invite you to start by putting your questions in the chat. Although, let's see, Al, would you stop sharing your screen for a minute so we can see each other's faces? Super. So you can also try the just raise your hand method, although I can't see all of you. If you're not familiar with Slack, there's also the virtual raise your hand. If you find yourself in the participants list, it should give you the option to raise your hand. But any questions you have, whether for me, whether for Anna, whether for Al, whether for Katie. David asks, is there a relationship to the New York City DEC Climate Smart Communities 12 action areas? So that's a great question. And again, as part of this network that we are, you know, building and connecting people to, we are so fortunate in our region to have the wonderful Haley Farrington at the Genesee Regional Planning Council, who is our Climate Smart Communities coordinator for our region. And she is a dynamic individual who is passionate about these issues and happy to support communities. She provides a lot of education for municipal leaders. So if it's a question of, you know, you've made a connection with someone in your, you know, decision maker in your community, and you want to have Haley come in and talk about the details, she is there as a resource. We can connect you to her. And again, she is a exciting person to work with. So having that as a resource, we're really fortunate in that regard. Eric asks, have you looked into community-owned solar? This has the potential for greater community benefits than CCA. And so Eric, and anyone else who would have the same question, what initiatives to pursue is really up to the community, right? The community can set their own priorities. And as these communities, and I'll open it up to you in just a second. As the communities set their priorities, and as some communities experiment with different solutions and share back their best practices and what has worked, what has not, that gives the ability, again, to kind of streamline the process for all. So I think the Color Your Community Green network would be totally open to including community-owned solar in that. I think I know what Al's going to say about that, so I'll go ahead and let him do that.
One of the things I did not mention, Eric, in my presentation is that the other important ask, our secondary ask of the board, is that our CCA program also stand up community solar to allow for those discounts and to allow for any of our residents to be able to participate in exactly what you're talking about there. So two-phase program, CCA for regular electricity rates, but also the ability to opt in to community solar. So that's something that you could look at if you're implementing CCA as one of your initiatives in your community.
Thank you for that question, Eric. Janice asks about Pittsford specifically. So Pittsford is a very interesting case. We have a lot of people in Pittsford who are interested and have expressed interest, and some of a few of those people who've been attending our, our Community Green team leader meetings on a monthly basis. They have not launched publicly, and the reason for that is because bandwidth is limited and no one is quite ready to take the reins. So Pittsford is actually the community where we're intending to do our first facilitated launch to pilot what that would look like. And we anticipate that that will be in late August, perhaps early September. If you let us know who you are, if you fill out our form, you will be on the list and you will get an invitation to that. But it's actually kind of amazing how many people from Pittsburgh specifically have expressed interest in this. So I'm very excited to see what that's going to look like once it gets off the ground. Cities and neighborhoods can participate too, Evan points out, not only towns and villages. Right, so we don't currently have any groups organizing in the city. Same issues though in the city in terms of the need for municipal level action. But also in the city, a lot of unique opportunities for what does it look like at the neighborhood level to organize around climate issues, and specifically thinking about, the walkability of the neighborhood, some of the land use zoning issues, also, the buildings themselves, what is developed, what is not developed, what, gets funding for this and that and the other thing. The city does have unique challenges, also has really unique opportunities. And so we invite city residents to get involved, maybe thinking about it at the neighborhood level, maybe thinking about it more broadly. But a lot of the toolkit resources would still apply very nicely. Jim says, encourage participants to suggest tonight groups in their community that might be good contacts. So for example, PTA, environmental groups, clubs, book clubs, neighborhood watch groups, church friends, etc. That's a very good point, Jim. And I will just mention that in one of those toolkit documents, I think it is that municipal assessment document, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie. Katie's had a lot to do with developing that. I think she's saying yes. It kind of guides you through thinking about who are those potential partners in your town or your neighborhood. So thinking broadly about who you can partner with. Any other questions that you guys have at this point? Or Katie, you just unmuted yourself. You have something to chime in with?
I did. We hadn't considered book clubs. So thank you, Jim. And like I said, or I think Abby said, this is definitely a work in progress. And so please send brilliant ideas our way. We will find a way to incorporate it.
Yeah, so the toolkit itself is a draft. This whole project, we are looking to learn and grow and develop. We haven't worked out all the bugs yet, for sure. And so we look forward to doing that collaboratively together. Janice asks, will this webinar be available for rebroadcast? And the answer is, so long as the recording works appropriately, as I think it is doing right now, Yes, we will be sharing that out. We anticipate tomorrow or the next day, actually. So long as there are no technical hangups, which, you know, always fingers crossed on that one, we should have this available for sharing very soon. Any action in parenting yet? Answer is yes. Fairport/Parenton. It's, you know, how, and this is actually a really interesting thing, right? It's sort of a unique dynamic that we have to deal with. Villages versus towns. And so there's some organizers working in Fairport. At this point, they are mostly focused on the village, but not at all opposed to branching out. And we do have a lot of people in Parenton more broadly who I think would be interested in engaging in that. So again, if there's energy around that, we can kind of like put you all in touch to talk about it and figure out what makes sense. And if there are no more questions, we might actually get out of here early tonight, and that's okay. Short and sweet is good, but I'll give another minute or two if anyone has something they want to add. Oh, someone's just joining us. Unfortunately for that person, they kind of missed the meat
Wrong
of
moment.
the conversation. Okay, so I'm gonna just, does it make sense to briefly show the toolkit? Well, Jim, I'm gonna share the page on our website where you can find the toolkit. We'll go for that. I'll share my screen really quickly. Okay, so, and look, there's Katie's pretty face right on top. I love that. And actually, if you didn't see that wonderful video that Al and Katie made, I think this is that video, right? They're just so great. But so down here below, you will find the pieces of the toolkit. Still a work in progress, very much. You're welcome to explore around with that, share feedback. Again, our interest form is also linked on this page. These, I believe, link directly to the town's websites. So those towns that have a website up and running, you can find that there. And I will quickly share that link in the chat so it is easy for you to find. There you go. Okay. So with no further ado, Al, Katie, Anna, anything you want to say? Last words?
Thank you for putting this together, Abby. Wonderful. Thank you.
All I did was set a date. All right. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one thought. If there's some valuable information, especially for finding other people in your area, in the chat. So maybe if you, I don't know if everybody knows how to copy the chat as a text, but Al, who's very good at tech, will be able to help.
Yes, I can. If you go to the chat on the bottom right, you have a 3-dot ellipsis. If you select the ellipsis, there's a choice to save chat. That will save the chat into your local Zoom folder on your local computer.
Thanks, Al.
And I will just point out what a great example that was of how, you know, different people have different skills, different knowledge, and bringing those different people together who kind of each play their unique role, you know, and cumulatively you can kind of do it all. That's what, you know, that's what makes up this movement and what makes our work successful. So, you know, if you're kind of thinking, well, what would my piece of this be? Trust me, there is something that you know how to do, some piece of knowledge, some, you know, just maybe you're good at your people skills, you know, that chatting up the neighbor piece, maybe you're good at that. Or maybe that's the thing you hate most, but you really like spreadsheets. Like I actually recall when I first got involved in this work, I was the person who hated spreadsheets, but thankfully we had somebody else who was willing to do that. And so together we were able to kind of move forward. So it's finding those people, connecting, and just divvying up the work so you get stuff done. So with that, I will say thank you all and good night, and keep an eye out for that recording. Please do share it out and fill out the interest form.